Mr. Crotty, you now have 20 minutes.
You are on mute.
Thank you. I was deprived due process to the limit of time that I was prevented from asking all the questions I had for the chief for my defense. I had submitted a motion telling the commission that I had an ADA protected diagnosis that prevented me from performing. Anyway, so my name is Michael Bernard Crotty. I'm an Irish American Catholic, San Francisco native. My family's been in the city for 4 generations. I don't know if you're all familiar with the city's flag. If you're not, I encourage you to research it. Its central symbol is a mythical figure called the Rising Phoenix. I would like to talk about this symbolism for a moment because I think it's applicable to my life, my career, and the state of our city today. The mythical phoenix was chosen because it's an ancient symbol of immortality. When a long-lived phoenix feels death is near, it builds a nest of aromatic wood under itself and sets it afire. As one dies, a new phoenix arises from the ashes, just as San Francisco arose from several great fires throughout its history, and just as I will do after today. Symbolically speaking, the effects in response to COVID-19 have burnt a lot of the world as we formerly knew it to the ground. Our work, our friendships, our families, our businesses, our communities, and the lives will never be the same. A pile of charred debris left behind continues to smolder. Today, the Fire Commission will incinerate my beloved career, but during my last moments as a San Francisco firefighter, I want to provide perspective, share some personal stories, and send out a message of hope and renewal. My family immigrated from Ireland in the mid-1800s. They arrived in San Francisco, helped build, and have proudly served our community for generations. My great-grandfather was a bricklayer by trade, and in 1863 founded the San Francisco Bricklayers Union Local 5. He and his crews were responsible for building many of the structures that have been historical landmarks, and we all conduct business in our city today. He led the hardworking tradesmen who rebuilt our great city after the 1906 earthquake. My grandfather became the president of the SF Bricklayers Union following his years of hard manual labor and dedication to the city and his craft. He lived in an era when employees had little rights, benefits, and privileges in their jobs. They worked long hours with inadequate safety precautions and less than ideal conditions. They were subjected to employer abuses, and workers were literally willing to die to secure better working conditions, benefits, and pay for themselves and their posterity. My grandfather eventually went to work for the city and county of San Francisco as a civil servant. Ironically, after all his efforts, he died as a result of being injured on the job. My family has literally bled and died for the city that they helped build and loved. My father, Bernard Crotty, Barney, was also a member of the Bricklayers Union when he first appointed to civil service in the 1950s. Barney quickly rose through the ranks and became at that time the youngest superintendent in the history of the city. He was at the helm of the Department of Public Works for almost 30 years, working under various mayors, including Joseph Alioto, George Moscone, Dianne Feinstein, Art Agnes, Frank Jordan, etc. He retired in the 80s from the city, but continued to be a key player in local politics and city government and was an active member of our city's employment organizations. Having come from a strong union family himself, my father respected his subordinates immensely. He respected and valued workers' rights and fought against discrimination at every turn. As a result, he was afforded tremendous respect by his subordinates and superiors alike. I have witnessed grown men tear up with emotion when they recount the dignity, respect, and brotherhood that Barney showed them throughout their careers. On May 20th, 1967, Barney suffered a devastating, life-changing experience. Returning home late one night after a colleague's retirement dinner, he and his friend saw a red glow in the night's foggy sky from a distance as they turned down Claremont Boulevard in the West Portal neighborhood. He said to his friend, "Oh my God, someone's home is on fire." And as they got closer, he realized it was his own. They pulled up in front of his house that was fully engulfed in flames. They had arrived at the same moment as the crews were stepping off their rigs, and he recounted that everyone seemed to be moving in slow motion as his entire family was inside. Screaming their names, he ran past police and firefighters. He got the door open as he fumbled with his keys and tried to run into the flames so he could get to them. He was immediately dragged out of the doorway and down the front steps to safety by the firemen at the scene. Many firefighters who were at that house that night have painfully recounted the devastating scene to me. It was the most horrific event of their careers. When the fire was finally extinguished and the morning light illuminated the wreckage, they began to remove the bodies of his family. His wife's badly burnt body was found in the upper floor with a telephone receiver in her hand. The children's bodies were burnt beyond recognition. Two of the girls were kneeling, one with her hands positioned in prayer, her sister with her arms around her beside a bed. His son was found crouched down in the corner of the staircase with his arms over his head, as he was obviously trying to make it out of the house to find help that was only a few blocks away at Station 39 that never came. He was stopped in the stairway when the house exploded in a backdraft. One man I spoke to, the son of a retired fireman who was at the scene, said he had asked his father what the worst call he'd ever went on was. Without hesitation, he responded, "The Crotty fire." He broke down crying as he recounted the fire to him, and the fire crews had been walking up and down the stairs for hours before they noticed my little brother's body in the corner. This tragic event in 1967 took the lives of Barney's wife of 25 years and his 4 children. All were under the age of 12. He was just a little younger than I am today. When you drive past St. Brendan's School and Church on Portola Boulevard, where the children attended and the family worshiped, you will see cypress trees. They were planted in memorial of Pauline, John, Kathy, Julia, and Peggy. The fire and their deaths would have driven the strongest men to the brink. He might have even taken his own life if he didn't have such strong faith in God. Thankfully, through his faith and the support from the community, he persevered. The cohesive community, once cherished by San Franciscans, supported him through his tremendous grief. In spite of his immense suffering, he managed to live out a courageous life, gratefully serving others in both a professional and personal capacity. Barney served as CEO of the San Francisco Employees Federal Credit Union, worked for the Protect Our Benefits organization, and was on the city's retiree board and served as president. He fought for, protected, and won many of the benefits we all enjoy today. He was a great and selfless man. He always fought for the fair and equitable treatment of all people and encouraged others to do the same. Our city was graced with his dedication and service. It is heartbreaking to see his hard work slowly be dismantled and undermined by those with no appreciation for the struggles they endured. At the age of 50, Barney met my mom, was given an opportunity to rise from the ashes, start a second family, bringing myself and then my sister into the world, and began a new and amazing chapter of life. He regarded his second family as an incredible blessing from God. I am his son from that second family. As early as my memory served, we were told of our siblings in heaven who died in the fire. My parents openly shared this tragic history that forever altered my father's life and explained why and how we came into existence. It is incredibly symbolic to me that the Fire Commission unknowingly scheduled this hearing today on his birthday. He was born on October 19th, 1923, and he would have been 99 years old today. Happy birthday, Dad. I know you were with me in spirit. My career goal has been set since early childhood. I was determined to be a firefighter for the city of San Francisco. I knew I wanted to serve and protect this community just like the men who saved my father's life the night of the fire. I was 42 years old before I achieved my dream. I felt like I had won the lottery when I was able to finally work in this noble profession. I have been grateful to God to have had the opportunity to live this lifelong calling. Last year, I was faced with an enormous decision. The situation placed my religious beliefs, my health, my values, my love for humanity, and the career which I have treasured as a gift from God at odds. It has been extremely painful for me not to be afforded fair treatment and respect regarding this crossroads, free from discrimination, judgment, pressure, harassment, and intimidation. Maybe some of you are wondering what my background, my family history, and the Phoenix Rising have to do with today's proceedings. I will attempt to connect the dots. I am telling you my story because I want you all to have a full picture of my state of mind, who I am, and why my conscience is guiding me here. I find myself in a situation where I'll be stripped of a vacation that means so much to me. Some may see this as my fault. The department has painted a picture of a defiant and selfish child who won't take its medicine, a child who doesn't care who he hurts as long as he gets his way. This couldn't be farther from the truth. I am a man with a lifetime of respect and love for the fire department, its personnel, the city, and the community. A man who was put in a no-win situation by the city. I had a 20-year employment record with the city and county of San Francisco, was discipline-free, and had always adhered to safety rules and respected authority and my superiors. I have presented this information to show that I did not act in bad faith for one moment, nor did I intend to disrespect authority, nor do I believe I am or was ever a danger to public health. I did not obstruct the government from providing a healthy and safe environment for the community and its employees. It was the city that would not permit me to follow my conscience and keep my job. I respect and love the men and women of the San Francisco Fire Department, and I have a great devotion to the health and well-being of all the people in our city. I admire the hard work, dedication, and service of the brave souls who work for the SFFD and all who manage the daily difficult operations. But I also believe many have lost their way due to the chaos of the pandemic, politics, and a desire to get back to some degree of normalcy. I pray they too will rise from the ashes. It is because my ancestors, especially my father, dedicated their lives to ensuring that all employees who work for San Francisco civil servants should have their rights preserved, their benefits protected, and shall be treated fairly in employment matters that I participate in this hearing, despite knowing the predetermined outcome. Shortly after I was infected and recovered from COVID-19, the city unilaterally implemented a mandate that had quick deadlines and disparate impacts for many employees. This caused me and many first responders who had worked through the pandemic a great deal of stress. When the mandate was implemented in June 21 without proper notice to Local 798, before the impacts of the change in working conditions could be negotiated, the department and the city began bombarding employees with messages, letters, emails, and memos involving threats of discipline. They sent out messengers to tell employees they could be arrested and disseminated false information about losing our pensions. They were intimidating, coercive, and retaliatory towards anyone who stood in their way to gain 100% compliance. There was no opportunity for us as trusted, faithful employees to sit down and discuss options and concerns with anyone who had the power to alleviate our worries or answer our questions. We went from being 2020's heroes to being treated as 2020 zeros after the introduction of this mandate. Some of the events that took place behind the singular focus of getting employees to take these injections has been immoral, unethical, spiteful, vicious, and most importantly, unlawful. The city and county of San Francisco and the fire department put into motion a pressure-filled crusade using fear and intimidation directed at our competent, previously valued employees. High-ranking members of the SFFD command staff spread falsehoods and misinformation regarding ways in which permanent firefighters would be punished. They claimed we would be immediately released from employment without due process and would lose our pensions if we didn't immediately comply. We were told not to bother submitting any religious exemptions because they wouldn't be granted, especially if we were Catholic. We were told that we would spend the rest of our career changing tires in a muni yard. We were told that we would be made examples of, and we would suffer consequences unimaginable, and labeled troublemakers for trying to take a stand for our God-given and constitutional rights. We were told we had no rights because the union gave them all away. These are some of the threats and intimidation we were subjected to for months. We were given no direction or assistance filing exemptions, which were carved out in the DHR policy and procedures to comply with the Civil Rights Code of 1964. Having the background and knowledge to understand that we were being fed blatant lies and the city and department was acting in bad faith, intending to pressure employees into waiving their rights, I set out to defend the less knowledgeable employees. I believe I suffered retaliation as a result. When I and other similarly situated employees banded together to address some of our employers' failures to engage in good faith negotiations, and we objected to the inadequate time to make informed decisions, we became persona non grata. The unethical methods of intimidation which have been perpetrated against these outstanding employees were unconscionable. I and others were branded as selfish, troublemaking, disrespectful employees by individuals who knew nothing about my character. I realized the Crotty name, once revered by those who knew our city's history, will likely be tarnished and overshadowed by these events. I lament the diminishing feelings of pride, loyalty, and the love that I always held in my heart for the city and the department. I long for the integrity that my lineage helped create regarding civil service employees. It pains me to witness my family's contribution to this great city and their dedicated service be forgotten, but moreover destroyed. My Catholic faith, passed down from generations of faithful believers, is the center point of my life. Although in my youth I strayed from my moral beliefs and practices and fell into a destructive pattern of alcohol abuse, after many attempts to stop for over a decade, I turned back to God and lived in a religious community in Italy for 4 years. I returned home to the States a new man and began to earnestly pursue my lifelong desire to be a firefighter with the belief that one day I would achieve my dream. I took a low-level position in the department that my father had once run, working as a street sweeper on swing shift in the middle of the Tenderloin. I worked amongst society's outcasts and rejects and treated them with respect and dignity. I believing that my life has always been directed by God's hand, and that it was no mistake that I was put there in the midst of people who had nothing and lived from one bottle or bag of poison to the next. I spent many days and nights while on breaks talking to those men and women who were lost and shared my experience of strength, hope, and faith to encourage them to seek help and change the direction and trajectory of their lives through faith in God. I don't know how many I may have reached, but I would often pray for them and had in the forefront of my mind, but for the grace of God go I. After many years of hard manual labor for DPW, the Port of San Francisco, and the Department of Recreation and Parks, I finally got the call I had waited for and worked towards for decades. I was granted a position as a firefighter. Unfortunately, I had lost my mother years early and she never got to see that dream realized. But my father was able to attend my graduation, although at the time he didn't fully grasp my accomplishment or understand because he was starting to suffer from dementia. After a lifetime of working towards his job, I had finally realized my dream. I had a difficult time in the academy as I had never been able to buckle down in school. Regardless of the obstacles, I was able to overcome my difficulties and successfully graduate from the academy and learn my trade well. I believe I was an asset to the department as I had compassion for patients and those that called in times of great difficulty. I do not feel that I am above or better than someone on the street and treat them as I would someone whose house we would enter into Seacliff or Pacific Heights, what many of you would all consider to be the elite of our city. Many of the people who you've already fired, those who I now call my best friends, are also people of the same caliber. You don't realize who and what you've lost by removing upstanding faithful servants. In my 21 years as a public servant, I have never had one instance in which my performance or integrity was called into question or was disciplined for any reason. I believe the same all goes for who you've now terminated. You've destroyed the careers of some of the best people you could find from the fire department. You've called into question the validity and substance of my religious beliefs and declared that I was not qualified. Some of my best friends are Catholic priests, and one of them is my cousin. Several of my aunts were nuns, and my uncle started Catholic schools across the country, so you have no idea how unfair these accusations are and wrong. You all are. I've spent the last 26 years serving God in all aspects of my life. I spent much of my free time, helping those suffering from addiction and their families, spent thousands of hours on the phone, driving people to rehab, facilitating their life-changing journeys to Europe, to the place that saved my life, spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, to multitudes of men and women, speaking at spiritual conferences across the country, and even praying for those deceased while I was performing CPR on them, and then comforting the loved ones of those who we couldn't save. I'm a man of strong faith and convictions. I find it only slightly amusing and incredibly ironic that those who have been assigned this task of stripping my vocation are blind to how discriminatory this is. As people from classes that have been some of the most oppressed and mistreated in our not too distant history, I would think you would be more sensitive. I would imagine that individuals of Jewish heritage, African American and Japanese descent, women, and those of other scorned populations would recognize injustice when they saw it. When we consider diversity in the city, religious diversity is not, should not be exempt from this goal. I could not participate in what you've undoubtedly been ordered to do to myself and my friends. We've endured vicious attacks from the media and even the city's attorney's office, calling us conspiracy theorists and lunatics. We've been labeled as killers and have endured the most horrible, unfair, and unbelievable treatment by coworkers, so-called friends, and some of our relatives. We've all been ruined financially. I couldn't even afford a lawyer to represent me today. I spent my life defending the disadvantaged and the underdogs of our society and lived a life of service to others. I'm not driven by money, prestige, or the trappings of this world. I found it incredibly insulting when the president of this commission asked why my coworkers didn't go to another department to seek employment with those that didn't require vaccination, and alluded that our reason was about money. Money was never my motive for becoming a firefighter. It was actually the last thing on my list of why I wanted this career. I never applied to another fire department because this is my city, my community, my home, and that of all my family that I wanted to protect and serve. I've explained through this statement what this job means to me. It's my vocation and my birthright, given my family's history in this city. No doubt you'll go into secret deliberations and end my career, but just know that while you strip me of my property and my rights, you take my career from me. You will never rob me of my convictions or my integrity. My father lost his whole family at my age and persevered. My loss today pales in comparison. As the phoenix dies and rises again, so will I rise from this injustice and be renewed into a stronger man with a determination to fight against these injustices. Saint Michael, the archangel, defend us in battle. Be our safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about this world seeking the ruins of souls. Amen. St. Francis and St. Florian, pray for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Firefighter Crotty. I turn to